Some games just don't get enough mainstream attention. There are hundreds of games released every year that don't make as many headlines, and today we've got time to talk about 10 of them. Many of these are middle-of-the-road style games that may have flown under your radar that are releasing this year. We got a good mix, and we're looking forward to hearing your suggestions in the comments. But let's get started off with number 10 and talk about Lost Soul Aside. If this one hasn't been on your radar yet, allow us to introduce you to it. I mean, look at this gameplay here. Just recently, the developers released a big chunk of gameplay, and what we get to see here is just some incredible Final Fantasy Devil May Cry combined action that just looks over the top and awesome and visually glorious. And what makes that even more interesting is the fact that we first originally saw this game in 2016. You may remember we've talked about it in a couple of videos, maybe our Friday news show, but it blew us away because it looked like a crazy AAA action game, but it was made by one dude. Now, in 2021, the project has gotten much bigger, it looks closer to a final release, and we're really excited to see what can come from it. It's another independent game coming out of China, similar to something like Black Myth Wukong, which a lot of people have been really excited about. And this one just really looks promising and exciting, especially for fans of action, fast combat, and cool swords. Now, next over at number 9, let's change gears a little bit with Militsioner. I don't really totally know how to pronounce it. I'm trying my best, but this game looks insane. The developers are dubbing it as a, and I quote, first-person surreal immersive runaway simulator. And it's good that they wrote that description just because I have no other way of describing this thing. You're being stalked by like an omnipresent giant police officer in the sky who is watching your every move, and you have to get away from him. You don't really know, like apparently you committed a crime or something. The description of the game is seemingly a little bit poorly translated, so it's hard to tell what's really going on, but generally you explore the environment. It's like a sandbox environment with streets, buildings, cars, transit, but you're trying to get away from this ever watchful eye, and watching the gameplay is insane because you can see the guy constantly looking at the player and sometimes reaching for him with a giant hand and pulling you away. Ooh, it gives me the willies. It seems like a game very much designed to induce anxiety. Great. The game also apparently uses your PC's mic and your voice to interact with the big police officer. I don't know what exactly that's going to entail, but this game just looks so damn weird that we had to include it. I gotta give props to things that really try something completely different, because I feel like this type of game, it could be a hit, and they could look back going to a big video game company boardroom and they're like, okay, what's your game? And they're like, okay, so you're in like a little town and there's a giant police officer and he's watching you and you gotta run away from him and he's mad at you. They would have been laughed out of the room. But I'm happy it's still getting made, and I can't wait to see what comes of it, just because it's a breath of fresh air. It's weird. Next over at number 8, we have Chernobylite. This launched in early access actually in 2019, but it's launching for real early this summer. This game has a lot going on. It's an RPG survival horror game with a ton of features attached. For one, it's like a real genuine RPG with a skill tree and even a team of companions that you build up and have to keep fed, and you gotta take care of them. You make decisions that impact the world. The story is non-linear, all just good RPG stuff. There's also some base building and weapon crafting and modding that is actually giving us Metro vibes with how things are kind of pieced together. But in this, you play as a physicist who is also an employee at the Chernobyl power plant, and you're traveling the wasteland looking for a missing loved one. The horror aspects, all the horror stuff, also look really cool. It looks more supernatural than just spooky, which I understand kind of doesn't make sense if you're looking for more real-life nuclear horror. Like, it isn't just mutants and radioactive bugs like Fallout. No, you're dealing with some otherworldly, ghostly force. I don't know. We think it looks cool. And while it isn't being marketed as a Stalker-like game, we've been getting Stalker vibes. So maybe if you're looking to play something that'll hold you over until the next one, Chernobylite might be something you want to look into as sort of a spiritual successor. Next, over at number 7, we have Boundary. This is a team-based multiplayer shooter, but with a twist. You play as an astronaut floating in space. It's a cool twist, and I think it's definitely going to change up this first-person formula quite a bit. For one, you're floating in space completely, so you can come up on an enemy from literally any angle, and so can they towards you. There are different classes to choose from, and a lot of customization. You can customize not only your weapons, but also your spacesuit with different gadgets like grenade launchers or an extra machine gun. Then, of course, there are weapon and character skins, as expected with pretty much any multiplayer shooter nowadays. The gunplay does look pretty tight, though. You'd think it would look floaty, seeing as that you're floating in space, but it doesn't seem to be the case here. Honestly, watching all the gameplay, we kind of get Rainbow Six Siege vibes, but in space. The HUD also gives us that vibe, but hey, we like those types of games here, and we really like space, so tactical cool shooting in space? Sign us up. Next, over at number 6, we're looking at EXOMECHA. We're just gonna go ahead and say it. This game doesn't look real. Like, there is so much cool stuff, and it looks so good visually that we just don't really believe it. This is a free-to-play shooter that is coming later in the summer. It takes place on a newly found habitable planet called Omeka, and different species are fighting for its resources. It kind of reminds us of Crysis mixed with Transformers and Power Rangers a little bit. It's over-the-top sci-fi robot man jumping around, blowing stuff up in really pretty environments, and the mechs have like medieval weaponry, and they're battling it out near a volcano. Like, look at all this. Are you kidding me? There's also a fire-breathing dragon mech. If this is good, if this is as awesome as it looks, then we're in. But it could still be up in the air. It could also look a little sketchy to some people. I don't know. As of right now, it seems like this is an Xbox Series X console exclusive, and it'll be running at either 4K or 120 frames per second, depending on the mode you pick. But even the 120 frames per second mode will have some sort of dynamic 4K resolution, so this game could potentially push your console to the limit. Everything just looks super sharp and highly detailed, and seeing that there's a lot of metal on screen between the mechs, the vehicles, the weapons, the players, and everything, it all just really ends up looking shiny and pretty. Honestly, this is something to keep an eye on, because this could be something special or it could be a complete disaster. And sometimes that's exciting. I can't help it. Now over at number 5, we have Isonzo, aka World War I, Isonzo, Italian Front. This is a first-person shooter set in the Great War, part of a series actually, with this one focusing specifically on the Italian front. This one is about tactics in the Alps and the valleys and rivers throughout the country, so there's more emphasis on defense, cramped bunkers built into mountains, managing holding off the enemy through fortifications and firepower, while also just some good old-fashioned close-quarters Italian village shootouts. The Italian front doesn't really get enough attention in war games, especially ones focused around World War I. So if you like World War I first-person shooters, and I know that's like a very specific thing, but I know fans of it are very much out there, then this one might be worth looking into more. I didn't even know about it until we started researching games for this video, to be completely honest. Honestly, hopefully people support it like Verdun and the many other indie war shooters out there that capture the vibe of something like classic Medal of Honor titles without just feeling like just another Call of Duty. You know, a break from the norm. We gotta celebrate that and at least give it a try. Now over at number 4, we have Necromunda, Hired Gun. This one looks really cool. Of course, visually it looks like a really crazy, grungy, sci-fi first-person shooter, but there's a bit more to it. Aside from it, of course, obviously here being graphically impressive, it's fast-paced, it's aggressive, and it's smart. It's smart because it's set in the Warhammer 40k universe, in the dark criminal underworld of the Hive City. You're tasked as a bounty hunter charged with hunting down criminals and weird bad guys and stuff for money, while engaging in a progression system where you level up, you upgrade yourself, and augment and customize your weapons. You also have an upgradable Cyber Mastiff robot dog that helps you out by finding and killing enemies, which, if you're even kind of aware of the tabletop stuff this is all based on, these creatures can be really cool. This is from the same team behind Space Hulk Deathwing, which was surprisingly good, and this looks bigger and crazier with interesting movement stuff like grappling hooks and wall running and cool aerial kills and gore. We're really looking forward to this one, and if it's anything like how we're still just having fun fragging monsters and stuff like Hunt Showdown and stuff like that, count us in. Now down to number 3, Breakwaters. As of right now, from what we can tell, this looks like a cool adventure survival co-op game set on a series of islands. The islands seem to be affected by weather, storm surges, tides, and of course, you are tasked with cutting down trees and crafting and hacking and eating and surviving. Yada yada yada, the usual stuff. But not only can you build bases, you can also control the terrain and water seemingly in some ways with magic potions that kind of act like little messages on a bottle washed up on the shore. You can sail from island to island and eventually even fly from island to island looking for treasure and seemingly going through some environmental puzzles while also fighting off some really cool monsters, some of which they've teased seem to be the size of entire islands. It's almost giving me like a Moana survival game vibe, if that makes sense, if you're into Disney animated movies, which it's kind of like how Valheim took the Viking approach to survival co-op community stuff. This could take the survival stuff in more of a Hawaiian island adventure type vibe, and that could be cool. When survival games go in unique directions, it usually works. Now down to number 2, we have Atomic Heart. This Russian-developed game is actually still pretty mysterious, but we've been keeping our eye on it for many years, and it finally seems close to release. This is like a System Shock, BioShock-inspired game set in a kind of alternate future, controlled by the Soviets, and science is running rampant, and it seems like it's possibly open world, and you go on a crazy adventure filled with melee, action, gore, and makeshift weaponry. And also, it looks gorgeous. We know now officially it is getting some ray tracing support. They are working with marketing with NVIDIA RTX, and this just looks right up our alley. Like I said in the beginning, if there's anything like Dishonored or BioShock or System Shock, anything like that, kind of like a thinking man's action first-person shooter, we're in. And Atomic Heart looks to really scratch all those itches. Now down to number 1, No More Room in Hell 2. It's a sequel to the very well-received Source mod. This is a co-op zombie shooter that is set to launch in early access pretty soon. The last bit of gameplay we got back in October of 2020 was definitely looking a little early access, but in their defense, it was early, not final footage, but still, there are some really cool things going on with this game. First of all, it gets the darkness right, which is a big thing for us. Like, it's actually dark, and it seems terrifying to navigate and actually scary. It also has a really cool weapon mod system that looks pretty great. The maps are open and have random elements to it that change up each playthrough, so you won't get the same experience over and over again. I don't know, there's just something about this one that has us feeling hopeful. We've been chasing that type of zombie game high since DayZ's Arma mod, and honestly, nothing has totally really satisfied us, not even the standalone DayZ release, so maybe this one will? Fingers crossed, we're gonna keep an eye on it. And you should keep an eye on all of these games, because we don't think they've been getting enough attention, and they could possibly be pretty cool. So let us know in the comment what you're interested in, but like I said at the start, let us know what other games you think aren't getting enough mainstream attention right now that you want to see. If we helped you out though, and maybe you discovered a new game from this video, clicking the like button is the best way you can help us out. We would really appreciate that. But if you're new, consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, because we put out new videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.